Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure. If you don't say we have some more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rate as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle, the ASU strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a life. The president never gave me any deadline.
Very good morning to you and welcome to Global Morning here on Global Television. My name is Godwin Sunday. Well, today is a Friday, and like we do every other Friday, we say TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. What a way to end a beautiful week that started on Monday. It has been an eventful week and has been a very interesting week so far. We've seen a lot of activities play out in the course of the week, and of course you won't deny the fact that most of the decision that has been reached, even taken this week, has been for the good of Nigeria, and to a large extent it has been for the progress of Nigerians. Speaking about the presidency and through to the House of Assembly and through to various local government quarters, now bringing this back to various activities going on across the country. It has been a very interesting week so far. I know you will agree with me even on these particular issues. Now, first, the most burning issues across the country is the issue that borders on the Fubara, Siminalayi, and that of the president suspending the National Assembly, the River State House of Assembly. We've seen that conversation evolve when the Nigerian Senate just yesterday also stood with the presidency. And like most people will say that the Senate was too quick to take that decision. We thought that we will see a bit of a challenge for the Nigerian Senate and the National House of Assembly in general in making that decision. It was a call too sudden, so many people will see from different quarters. But then, it is what it is. We saw the National House of Assembly and taking side with the president, that what the decision that the president took was in line with the constitutional provision, and also it follows the rule of law, as it were. But then the other side of the divide is that couldn't we have had a pushback from the Nigerian Senate saying that the president was too hasty with his decision, did not give room for due consultation, did not allow the assembly to deliberate before implementing and taking that decision? There are questions begging for answer. The other light of the conversation is the Nigerian Senate ought to even say at this point in time, can we look at some of the enacted laws that gives the president the power to do what he did, especially Section 305 of the Nigerian Constitution, and marry that to Section 188 of the Nigerian Constitution. Look at some of the intricacies of this Constitution and try to look at how to advise the president so going forward, so we won't have a situation where another government will come in and relies on the principle of emergency, like what we've seen so far, a state of emergency, the principle of state of emergency, like what we've seen in River State, and suspend a sitting governor. Is this precedent right for the Nigerian Senate to stand by the president? Wouldn't this set a negative precedent for our nascent democracy? Wouldn't this send a very wrong signal to the international community that we are not ready to evolve in our democratic system? That is, we are just a unitary system masquerading as a federal system, because we've seen what has played out so far. The Senate right now standing with the president. It means that there was no form of questioning, no checks and balance, no form of due diligence that was carried out. But all we heard and seen in the videos that has been making the round, even from the Nigerian Senate, is that a lot of factors played out. But we'll go into all of this conversation, and we'll see some of those videos has been said by the Nigerian Senate. But please go nowhere. The show is just starting. Global Morning continues in a moment. Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper reviews and latest news with experts on key global issues,
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and international.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
Come back. So at this point in time, we're out to thank the Nigerian Senate by saying thank you to the leadership of Godswill Akpabio, the House of Representatives Speaker Tajuddin Abbas, all the principal officers and members for prioritizing the security and welfare of Rivers State people above partisans' interest and other consideration. But let's quickly even see the video of the sitting at the plenary of the National Assembly, where the motion was moved and adopted for some of the decision of the president, before we come back to the president's appreciation speech to the National Assembly.
After the session, President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, put the matter to a voice vote, with lawmakers overwhelmingly supporting the request. Announcing the decision, Akpabio says the Senate had exercised its powers under Section 305, subsection 2 of the Constitution to approve the President's proclamation. The upper chamber, relying on Section 11, subsection 4 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, resolved to set up a joint committee to oversee the administration of Rivers State Legislature and a select group of eminent Nigerians to reconcile the warring parties in the state.
Conferred on it by Section 305, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, and approved the proclamation of state of emergency declared by Mr. President in Rivers State of Nigeria. The Senate further directs that the declaration of the state of emergency stated in the proclamation document and the mandate of Mr. President to review, and hereby mandates the President to review and even to terminate the state of emergency at any given time, but not later than 6 months. The Senate further resolved that Section 11, subsection 4, be invoked, providing the National Assembly the authority to set up a joint ad hoc committee of both chambers to oversight the administration of Rivers State henceforth.
Earlier, the House of Representatives approved the declaration through a voice voting by the 243 members in attendance.
Hold on, honorable colleagues. You are saying that the president doesn't need to wait until the expiration of the 6 months before he can lift this suspension, right? That if by tomorrow Rivers State will wake up and everything is okay, he has the right to say, okay, the state of emergency should come to an end. So rather than just tying us to 6 months, you are saying at any given time, between the first day after the passage of this particular request, the president is at liberty to lift this suspension. Is that what you are saying? Okay. Those in support of this request of Mr. President as amended should say aye. Aye. Those in support of this request from Mr. President as amended should say aye. Those against should say nay. That is have it. Thank you very much.
President Bola Tinubu had on Tuesday declared a state of emergency in Rivers State, citing breakdown of law and order, while appointing retired Vice Admiral Ibok Ete to administer the state in absence of Governor Fubara and the 27 lawmakers. For Global Television, Queen Agaba reporting.
All right, welcome back from that report. A lot of questions begging for answer even on the show today, because on the show, because of the show, we get to talk with policy analysts, and also we talk to political analysts and also professionals within the field to help us shed light into the conversation, even that of the National Assembly, saying everything seems to be on the eyes, and the eyes keep having it, even in both chambers of the House of Assembly yesterday. We saw a very interesting conversation, but then the eyes are not always, but in this case the eyes had it yesterday, saying that it is for the betterment and for the good of the country. But then again, we begin to ask a salient questions. First is the process that led us to this point. Can we say that the process that led us to this point itself is legitimate, is legal, and it is a good antecedent for our nascent democracy? So the president came out, in case you're not aware, the Nigerian president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, just a few days ago, through a public broadcast, a national broadcast, I beg your pardon, he was able to announce that Rivers State Governor and National Rivers State House of Assembly is hereby, the governor is suspended, and the House, alongside with the deputy and some other, the principal officers, that is the commissioners, everybody is on suspension by the implication of that particular pronunciation. And the House of Assembly also was suspended, but they had to exclude the judiciary arm of the state to allow them to still run in the state. Now, looking at all of this, one begins to ask, in a state of emergency of this nature, wouldn't it have been right if a sole administrator had emerged from probably a permanent secretary, a former permanent secretary, or a former director, or a former this or that that has not been in Rivers State to handle their affairs? But no, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu chose to bring in Ibok Ete, who is a former chief of naval staff. Of course, it's a brilliant idea. He might have his reasons probably to try to, but in the present, if you have a military presence around, or a former military chief of staff, he has been able to come back in a lot of crisis, and it should be, this one won't be a challenge. But what we didn't hear was what's the time frame for Ibok Ete to be able to bring back peace to Rivers State? Is there a time frame? Is there a duration that we're going to use? And if yes, what happens if within this time frame there is no peace restored, as it were, between the House of Assembly and the executive arm of government, the legislative and the executive arm of government? If peace is not restored within that given time frame, what happened? Will the administrator be replaced? That's the first question on one hand. The second question on the other hand is, you brought in this process of announcing, dissolving or suspending the House and suspending the democratically elected governor. Now that's by the way. Now the second part of the conversation is, you swore in Udoy Ibogete. I don't know why I kept calling him Udoyete. You swore in him even at the House of Assembly as a sole administrator to stabilize Rivers State and addressing systematic breakdowns and facilitate dialogue among conflicting parties. Like I said before, there is no time frame for that. It's a give or take. It will take like 6 months. So if the 6 months is not enough, it can be extended. So we don't know the time frame that the president is going to work with on that. Then again, we'll now say at this point, you swore him in without a debate from the National Assembly. Is this the right procedure? Is this the right process for us to be able to keep to be able to be judged fairly in the tribunal of history, that we're able to live up to certain responsibility? Now, when you say you swore a person in as a sole administrator, yes, the executive arm has that right to do that, but swearing a person in, it looks like a unilateral conversation with the president and the presidents, because we were expecting to see the judicial arm do most of this vetting and the swearing in and all of this, and the National Assembly perhaps would have scrutinized this individual in the person of Ibogete, who thought that the Assembly would have also looked at his portfolio, looked at his leadership style, looked at some of the things, just scrutinize and be able to form back recommendations for the president. And from there, we can now have a situation where everybody is on a level playing ground, knowing fully well that there's no politics attached to this, because in the House of Assembly, everybody will be allowed to scrutinize. Now, that's the second part, because we didn't even see that, and the president has gone ahead to swear. And a day after the swearing in, we've seen the National Assembly coming out to say all eyes have it. Of course, there's nothing wrong with all eyes have it, but the kind of precedent we are setting for our democracy right now, is this what we'll be proud of in the coming years and the years ahead? But a lot of questions that we'll need to even answer here in the third part of the conversation. All of the questions that also requires an urgent answer, even at this point. We say that the president had iftar with some of the principal officers of the National Assembly. We saw that video where the president and the vice president had iftar with principal officers of the National Assembly. Could that be where the deliberations and discussions was held about the Rivers State, and where the scrutiny was done and there was no media coverage and there was no report on this? Could it be a hidden kind of scrutinization of the soul of the administrator of Rivers State? But then a few hours after the president, this National Assembly has approved and given a thumbs up to the president's decision. Of course, we saw a letter from the president saying that, I will just read from here: President Tinubu salute National Assembly for patriotic stand on Rivers State emergency proclamation. President Bola Tinubu made on Thursday lauded the National Assembly for its decisive and patriotic ratification of the state of emergency proclamation in Rivers State, a critical step to restoring stability after a protracted political crisis that paralyzed governance in the state and endangered national economy security for over 15 months. The president specifically commended the National Assembly Leadership Senate President Godswill Akpabio, House of Representative Speaker Tajuddin Abbas, other principal officers and members for prioritizing the security and welfare of Rivers State people above partisan interests and other consideration. He further acknowledged the lawmakers' diligent review of classified security briefings, underscoring the urgent need for intervention to prevent escalation. The crisis in Rivers State was a perilous tipping point, threatening the security of vital oil and gas installations and undermining the national economy and the significant progress we have made in the reforms initiated since our administration commenced in May 2023, President Tinubu remarked. As I detailed in my address to the nation on March 18, the near total collapse of governance, threats to federal economy assets, and the risk of widespread violence left no room for hesitation. This emergency measure is a lifeline to safeguard livelihoods, secure critical infrastructure, and restore democratic accountability. Now, we're seeing all of this. This is the president coming out to thank the National Assembly for being patriotic, for prioritizing the Rivers State emergency by the president, declaration by the president. But then again, we want to also ask salient questions here, because answers is what we seek even here on the show, and of course we help you out there make informed decision with some of the discussions and that we have even here on Global Morning. But some of the questions again that one needs to start looking at right now is at this point in time, when the National Assembly has given the president an approval, and the Labour Party and all other members, minority members of the House of Assembly, as concomitantly giving a nod to the action of the president, are there still loopholes for Siminalayi Fubara to approach the court in order to get interpretation of Section 305, or the Nigerian Bar Association to get look at the Section 305 again and see if some of what has been upheld by what has been said by the president and what has been upheld by the National Assembly, it's in tandem with that provision of Section 305 of the Constitution. Are there loopholes? Do we still need to go to court to try to get the legal interpretation of that section of the Constitution? Now, these are some of the things that we'll be even looking at this morning. If Siminalayi Fubara can still approach the courts, can aggrieved parties in this particular instance approach the court? Can the Nigerian Bar Association still approach the court? Can Nigerians independently still approach the court to get interpretation? Or this would be another litigation in error? Or this would be an exercise in futility? Or to be an exercise also of trivialities and frivolities? Will it be a waste of the court's time? But then we're going to set the precedent right and get lawyers to talk to us even this morning. Please stay with us. When we return, we'll be going straight to the newspaper's review, and thereafter the conversations will begin. Please go nowhere as Global Morning continues in a moment. Come back. Now, we'll begin with the first newspaper for today. We're starting with the Blueprint newspaper. Now, above the nameplate, we have NNPC Retail celebrates female mechanic. Female mechanics advocate inclusivity. You can find that story on page 29 of the Blueprint newspaper. Go out there and get yourself a copy of the Blueprint paper. Now, just below the nameplate, we have a story here that says police confirm 6 killed, 14 cars burnt in Abuja explosion. Well, it was a sad one in Abuja just 2 days ago, and it was a sad. It happened around the Nyanya axis of the Federal Capital Territory. Now, also below the nameplate of the Blueprint newspaper, we have Access Bank opens 193.23 billion naira commercial papers for subscriptions. Access Bank opens 193.23 billion naira commercial papers for subscription. Now, you want to find out what that is? That's on business on the Blueprint. You can go out there and get yourself a copy of the Blueprint to know what the paper is all about and some of the subscription intake in there. All right, in sports here on Blueprint, we have World Cup qualifier. Osimhen, Lukman, Chukwueze gets Chile's nod to wreck Rwanda. We'll see how that plays out, even as we're keeping track of that of the games, even here on global television. All right, it comes to the star story here that says, with $14 billion investment from India, others, Tinubu has made life easier for Nigerians. FG. It comes with a rider here that says over 200,000 bad logs of passport applications dead. Okay, cleared, I beg your pardon. Tunji Ojo have come out to say that over 200,000 backlogs of passport applications cleared. Tunji Ojo, that's the Minister of Interior. Her country's image now redeemed abroad. Tuga. Administration encouraging free speech, healthy opposition. Idris. You can go find yourself, want to find out more on that story, just need to go out there and get yourself a copy of the Blueprint newspaper to know what's going on in the country. All right, we have a story here that says weekend promo, Inikpi, the sacrificial lamb that saved Igala Kingdom. Inikpi, the sacrificial lamb that saved Igala Kingdom. Go out there and get yourself a copy to know what Inikpi is. We are not aware of northern communities' peace deal with bandits, DHQ. We are not aware of northern communities' peace deal with bandits. Well, go out there and get yourself a copy to know what that is all about. NAS OK's state of emergency in Rivers State louds lawmakers. NAS OK's state of emergency in Rivers State. Tinubu louds lawmakers. It comes with a rider that says opposition rejects proclamation, launches coalition ahead of 2027. You can find that read on page 9 of the Blueprint newspaper. Now, just at the foot of the paper, we have call members to receive 77,000 allowance effective from March. DG. Okay, so we hope that this is not another audio conversation. We've been listening to the Nigerian, to the DG of the NYSC for more than 7 months, saying that they're going to implement. Hope that this March implementation will come to stay and to stand the test of time. All right, we'll see how that plays out. We'll keep track of the conversations around the NYSC. I know core members across the country right now will be so excited, so elated that at least you're going home with something. 77,000 naira is something to go by with. So if you add that up, at least you should be able to keep body and soul together. So congratulations to all core members out there. Even this morning, your alawi from the end of this month will be fully implemented, and of course you will go home smiling with 77,000 naira. That's above the minimum wage, by the way. All right, so let's look at the story here on the Nation's newspaper. So our next paper is the Nation's newspaper. The Nation's newspaper. Now, above the nameplate, we have 25% oversubscription of first hold coins, 150 billion rights issued paves the way for its private placement of 350 billion. Now you can go check yourself. That's on business, on the Nations. That's just above the nameplate. You can go out there and get yourself a copy and to stay abreast and know what's going on in this old issuing right, and also you know what's going on and what to expect, which company is making all of this. So go out there and get yourself a copy of this. Now below the nameplate here we have Eagles in win or bust World Cup qualifier against Rwanda. Eagles in win or bust World Cup qualifier against Rwanda. Now you want to find out what that is. You can find that on page 31 of the Nation's newspaper. Alright, there's a story here that says police raised death toll in Abuja gas tanker explosion to 10. Recall we just read from the blueprint that it was 6 people that lost their lives, and right now we're getting another confirmation from the Nation's newspaper that 10 people actually lost their lives. Perhaps they were not captured initially by blueprints, but then could the number be higher than 10? I don't know yet, but you can go out there and get yourself a copy, so you know how many people were hospitalized due to the cause of that incident. All right, so moving on, we have Nnamdi Kanu's trial begins afresh after 3 years. Southwest spends 800 billion monthly on cow meat. All right, you want to find out some of the things around that conversation. You can find it on page 3 and page 4 about Nnamdi Kanu's trial beginning afresh. So you want to find out why is that so. Recall that Justice Nyako stepped down from that case, and they are to reassign the case to another chief judge. But starting afresh, starting from the scratch, that's it's quite sad. But let's see how that plays out. Here we have Ibas assumes office, once again sabotage disorder. Ibas assumes office, once again sabotage disorder. It comes with the rider. Senate House Day. Tinubu's emergency rule declaration. Senate House Day, Tinubu's emergency declaration. All right, you need to check that out. You have President hails lawmakers' patriotism. We'll discuss that earlier today, but you can go get a read of that on the Nation's newspaper. We have Fubara, no hand in oil pipeline bombing. Fubara, no hand in oil pipeline bombing. All right, so it comes with a picture here. Of course, you see a photo image here, and that's it for them. We then have payments of 77,000 allowance to youth corps members begins, says DG. That's also on page 3 of the Nation's newspaper. Quite a lot of read on the Nation's newspaper, but go out there and get yourself a copy of the Nation's newspaper to know what's going on in the country right now. All right, we'll move to the next paper here, and our next paper is Nigerian News Direct. Nigerian News Direct here says, just below its nameplate and the star story, says Tinubu 2027. Tinubu faces stiff opposition as Atiku, Obi, El-Rufai orders unite to challenge re-election bid. It's going to be a very interesting read. Go out there, page 3 of the Nigerian News Direct, and get yourself a copy. Senate reps approves Tinubu Rivers emergency rule despite opposition. APC backs NAS approved of Rivers emergency rule, slams Atiku orders. All right, so moving on, we have Ibadan Stampede. Oyo government withdraw charges against Queen Naomi Amzat. You go out there and get yourself a copy to know what's going on All right, now we have a story here that said NAFDAC uncovers fake Big Bull rice, arrests one in Rivers. That's coming from Adeyeye and a team trying to do justice to fake drugs in Nigeria. And we have another one here. Says Hares Holding Partners Givo African to tackle plastic waste. Hares Holdings Partners Givo Africa to tackle plastic waste. Want to know what's going on plastic waste management? You need to go out there and get a copy of the Nigerian News Direct to know what's going on. Payment of 77,000 naira allowance to commence in March. NYCDG, of course, we've taken that story before now. And we have a story here that says FG attracts $14 billion, 250 million euro foreign investment from India, Netherlands. All right, so you want to know how many investment that's on business on News Direct. Want to know how many business the FG has been able to attract so far to the country? Go out there and get yourself a copy of the News Direct newspaper. Well, we'll go for a short break right now, and when we come back, we'll still talk about the newspaper review. Please stay with us as Global Morning, even the news reviews, continues in a moment. All right, welcome back. We're still on the newspaper review this morning. Let me go straight to the Vanguard newspaper, where we have here Rivers crisis. Anger as NAS approves emergency rule with voice vote. You can find that story on page 8, 9, and 10 of the Vanguard newspaper. And also we have image here that says honor well deserved. Well, who was honored and why was he honored? You can find that story on it. We have an image story there. You can find that story on the Vanguard newspaper to know what's going on. So on sport on the Vanguard, expect rugged physical display from us. Super Eagles coming out to speak that you expect rugged physical display from them. We'll see how that plays out. USAID alleged support for Boko Haram unproven. Tuga. It was this. I remember when this conversation made the round. It broke 2 weeks ago that Nigerian that USAID was sponsoring and supporting a lot of crime in Nigeria. But Tuga has come out to say that this is unfounded. It is unproven. So, you want to find out more? You need to go and get yourself a copy of the Vanguard newspaper. Local content stimulates economic transformation. Local content stimulates economic transformation. NCDBMB. As Pandef orders loud Vanguard over conference. You can go out there and get yourself a copy of the Vanguard to see what's going on. A Mephiles trial. Court rejects EFCC request to file additional evidence. Well, Mephiles' case seems like one that is not going anytime soon. But we'll see how that plays out even in the court so far. Let's get punchy this morning. Yeah, of course, let's get punchy. We'll move straight to the Punch newspaper this morning, We'll begin with APC backs Tinubu as Atiku Obi, El-Rufai intensified coalition talks. We'll see how that plays out so far. Then we have here a story that says 25% oversubscription of First Outcomes 150 billion rights issue paves the way for its private placement of 350 billion naira. Wow, that's a big one. You can find that story on the Punch newspaper. All right, so Rivers emergency rule. National Assembly backs Tinubu as Fubara counters president's allegation. Well, I've asked that question before now, that would there be a local standing for Fubara to sue, and also private individuals, especially the Nigerian Bar Association, right now that the Senate has given a nod, would there still be a need to go to court to get the angle of the court? But all of the stories and some of my thoughts on them, you can go out there and get yourself a copy on them. The National Assembly backs Tinubu as Fubara counters president's allegation. So, I want to find out what will Fubara do next. Will he in turn suspend the president, since both enjoy certain level of executive powers? Just that within the exclusive legislative list, the concurrent list and the residual list, the power sharing, it differs, but them all are called executive. Now let's move to the foot of the Punch newspaper. FG panel reconvenes Monday over Naira for crude crisis. You can find that story and more in the Vanguard newspaper. Then we have a story as a US-based Nigerian woman faces 10-year jail for 40,908 fraud. $40,980 fraud. $40,980,000 fraud in a. So you want to get that read? As a US-based Nigerian woman faces 10-year jail. Want to find that read? Of course, you can get it on the Punch newspaper. FG pardoned 4,000 prisoners, saved 1 billion naira as feeding minister. Saved 1 billion naira on feeding. On feeding of what? Inmates. You have to find yourself, get yourself a copy of that of the paper, and also get Punchy this morning. All right, let's get to this day newspaper. Here we have Tuga. Nigerians drown 14 billion investments from India. 250 million euro investment from businesses. Well, you need to find out what's going on even in this regard. Then we have a story here that says, the Star story, by the way, that says Rivers Assembly ratifies emergency declaration. Tinubu hails. Well, quite a lot of drama happening in Rivers State. But you can go out there and get yourself a copy of the Rivers State happenings in Rivers State House of Assembly. If so, you can have a balanced story around it. All right, let's go to the last paper for today. The last paper for us here will be the Daily Trust newspaper, where we have a story here that says Rivers crisis, doubts over quorum in NAS approved. Okay, I'll take that again. Rivers crisis, doubts over quorum as NAS approves emergency rule. Okay, so the quorum here should be at least more than 120 members, at least 120 members for the National House of Representatives, and also they form that's how they form quorum. But yeah, it says that it doubts if the Senate was able to form, or the Assembly was able to form a quorum before reaching out to some of this deliberation. But we'll see how that plays out, because if you feel displeased, we can always try the instrumentality of the law to get some certain things out. There we have a story here that says Abuja accident. Agency calls for blood donation as death toll hits 10. All right, so I think I heard this some days ago that I needed blood. I think yesterday or so, I needed blood donation in a general hospital in Abuja for people that are to treat people that had emergency within that ward. But let's see. Moving on, we have core members will get 77,000 naira the allowance this month. That's from NYSC DG, and of course we've seen that story before now. I come to the star story here that says Atiku announces coalition against Tinubu. President cannot be distracted by sore losers. That's coming from Onanuga. Now it comes with a picture story here, very large picture, and I don't know what that represents. It looks like that the incident that happened in. I can't place this right now, but of course you can go out and get yourself a copy of the Daily Trust newspaper to keep yourself abreast, keep yourself at least in the know of what's going on even across the country. So go out there and get yourself a copy of the Daily Trust. Now that's how far we can go with the newspaper review. Now we'll go for the short break, and up next will be the AM news. And when we come back after the AM news, we'll delve into various conversations that will interest you. Please stay with us as Global Morning is just starting.
That global television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world.
Download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to watch global television real-time from around the world. What are you waiting for?
Start downloading and stay connected to global television.
top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
A Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper reviews and latest news with experts on key global issues.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and international.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning. Do you know that Global Television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world?
Download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to watch Global Television real time from around the world. What are you waiting for?
Start downloading and stay connected to Global Television.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
A Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper reviews and latest news with experts on key global issues.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and international.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning. Do you know that Global Television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world?
Download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to watch Global Television real-time from around the world. What are you waiting for?
Start downloading and stay connected to Global Television.
Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to AM News on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Godwin Sunday. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. You can download the Global Television Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to keep track of our broadcasts. And now to the news in details. Both chambers of the National Assembly have unanimously approved the state of emergency declared on Rivers State by President Bola Tinubu. President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, read the president later during Thursday plenary before lawmakers went into closed-door section. Queen Agaba has the story.
After the session, President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, put the matter to a voice vote, with lawmakers overwhelmingly supporting the request. Announcing the decision, Akpabio says the Senate had exercised its powers under Section 305, subsection 2 of the Constitution to approve the President's proclamation. The upper chamber, relying on Section 11, subsection 4 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, resolved to set up a joint committee to oversee the administration of Rivers State Legislature and a select group of eminent Nigerians to reconcile the warring parties in the state.
Conferred on it by Section 305, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, and approve the proclamation of state of emergency declared by Mr. President in Rivers State of Nigeria. The Senate further directs that the declaration of the state of emergency stated in the proclamation document and the mandate of Mr. President to review, and hereby mandates the President to review and even to terminate the state of emergency at any given time, but not later than 6 months. The Senate further resolved that Section 11, subsection 4 be invoked, providing the National Assembly the authority to set up a joint ad hoc committee of both chambers to oversight the administration of Rivers State henceforth.
Earlier, the House of Representatives approved the declaration through a voice voting by the 243 members in attendance.
Hold on, honorable colleagues. You are saying that the president doesn't need to wait until the expiration of the 6 months before he can lift this suspension, right? That if by tomorrow Rivers State will wake up and everything is okay, he has the right to say, okay, the state of emergency should come to an end. So rather than just tying us to 6 months, you are saying at any given time, between the first day after the passage of this particular request, the president is at liberty to lift this suspension. Is that what you are saying? Okay. Those in support of this request of Mr. President as amended should say aye. Aye. Those in support of this request from Mr. President as amended should say aye. Those against should say nay. There is have it. Thank you very much.
President Bola Tinubu had on Tuesday declared a state of emergency in Rivers State, citing breakdown of law and order, while appointing retired Vice Admiral Ibok Ete to administer the state in absence of Governor Fubara and the 27 lawmakers. For Global Television, Queen Agaba reporting.
Federal government has emphasized the importance of human capital development, particularly in focusing on the youth and future generations. Minister of Finance Wale Edun gave this indication at the launch of Corporate Social Responsibility Program Custom Care, which was held in Abuja. Kike Lomo Okere has the details.
The Minister of Finance, Wale Edun, highlighted the role of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in supporting human capital development initiative, adding that the 6 pillars of the agenda, which include education, healthcare, social protection, and food security, he expressed satisfaction with the current efforts of the Nigerian Customs Service and advised continuous collaboration with various departments and commissions.
I am particularly encouraged by the initiative of today's geographical spread across all the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria, and the promise to adopt schools in each local local council area within the FCT. So the customs will adopt one school in each council area within the FCT. And more importantly, the nationwide approach ensures that the benefits of this all-important initiative, Customs Cares, will reach communities throughout the country.
In his remarks, the Minister of Education, Tuji Alausa, highlighted the importance of involving subnational government in the Corporate Social Responsibility Development Plan, while calling for leveraging the database of junior and secondary schools to enhance the development efforts. Alausa suggested that both federal and state-owned schools, as well as private schools, should be included in the consultation process.
As you march along with rolling out your agenda, your development plans, your interventions with regards to the custom cares, I encourage you to align your development, your strategies with the Universal Basic Education Commission, the Nigerian Senior Secondary Education Commission, and the subnational government. Those are the people that will guide you and tell you what the schools need. More so, I'm talking more importantly about education now. You talk to this commission, you fill them out, they have the database of all the, UBEC has the database of all junior secondary school in the country, all the primary schools in the country, and the National Senior Secondary School Commission has the database of all the senior secondary school in the country.
In his remark, the Comptroller General of Customs, Adewale Adini, noted that the timelines insight of the CSR program underscores the rationale behind the service having prioritized education and comprehensive community development in their approach. He stated that investing in Nigerian youth and addressing critical needs across custom operational areas is a pathway of creating new narrative of hope, progress and sustainable development in communities that have long awaited meaningful interventions.
Officers and men have demonstrated ownership and commitment over this project by surrendering a part of their own salaries into this. 4% of their annual salaries is huge, it's quite huge, and this was willingly done. So this is to ensure that everybody will be committed, all hands will be on deck at the same time. We all witness, the impact of our operations in the societies, where we operate. Talk about this secondary school. We were here for almost 25 years. We park our vehicles, we get into their spaces. Our visitors disturb them and disrupt their programs. It is payback time to this school and so many other communities that support our activities. And we just have to be very creative, in looking for a funding formula to ensure that this will not just be a one-off intervention. It will be a demonstration of a long-time commitment to what we believe in.
Ahmed Tinubu's Renewal Hope Agenda, we have established the Custom Cares Initiative, a holistic corporate social responsibility program aimed at fostering inclusive growth and sustainable impact across Nigerian communities. Custom Cares is structured around 6 fundamental pillars: healthcare, education, social investments, food security, the creative economy, and environmental sustainability.
The high point of the event was the official launch of Custom Corporate Social Responsibility tag Custom Cares. Kike Lomo Okeri, Global Television News.
The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the 2023 election and the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has described the state of emergency declared in Rivers State as unlawful and clear subversion of democracy and imposition of autocratic federal control over a duly elected state governor. He made this known while briefing journalists and the concerned leaders and political stakeholders in Nigeria. Ramsey Enoch Agbo has the details.
The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the 2023 election and the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar says the Nigerian Constitution does not empower the president to remove an elected governor deputy governor or state assembly under any circumstances. Atiku says it is a misuse of Section 305 on state of emergency, which allows the president to declare a state of emergency only in an extreme cases where public safety, national security, or Nigerian sovereign is at serious risk.
Section 305 of the Constitution allows the President to declare a state of emergency only in the extreme cases where public safety, national security, or Nigerian sovereignty is at serious risk. However, it does not grant him the power to suspend elected officials or to demolish democratic structures as he has presently done in University. The conditions under Section 3053 for declaring a state of emergency include war or external aggression, breakdown of public order and safety, natural disasters or any other grave emergency threatening Nigeria's corporate existence. None of these conditions exist in current circumstances in University.
The concerned leaders and political stakeholders call on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to immediately revoke the unconstitutional proclamation and reinstate the elected governor of Rivers State and others, urging the judiciary to act swiftly.
We call on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to immediately revoke this unconstitutional proclamation and reinstate the elected governor, deputy governor, and state assembly of Rivers State. We call on patriotic senators and representatives to vote against this illegal action when it comes before them for approval. The National Assembly must stand on the right side of history and not allow itself to be used to legitimize an unconstitutional power grab. Nigerians must defend democracy. It is not only the responsibility of the opposition to defend democracy. It is the responsibility of all Nigerians, all of you, to defend democracy.
The former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, who defected from the All Progressive Congress, that is APC, to the Social Democratic Party, PDP, in a statement, called on the National Assembly to prove its authenticity in the matter.
No person with authority can remove an elected official, whether governor, deputy governor, or member of the legislature, without going through the due process of law. In the case of governor, by impeachment. In the case of legislators, through recall. Those are the only ways you can remove an elected person. You cannot tamper with the mandate of the people under Section 205 of the Constitution. The Supreme Court has spoken, and it's very, very clear. What President Tinubu has done is violently unconstitutional and unlawful. The National Assembly will, for once today, this National Assembly, that everyone accuses of being overstepped, will at least for once stand with the people of Nigeria.
Ramsey Enoch reporting for Global TV News.
Following the devastating explosion involving a Dangote compressed natural gas CNG truck, Global Television has visited the incident scene to confirm the facts. Sharon Ajay, who got reactions from victims and eyewitnesses, also spoke with security personnel. Here is a report.
The CNG-powered truck explosion came as a shock to many who were affected, as well as those living around the Karo-Nyanya axis, a suburb in the Federal Capital Territory. The CNG exploded about 5 times, destroying and damaging cars around its path, as well as killing a number of persons and injuring others. Witnesses have recounted their sad ordeal.
All I saw behind me was a flaming truck coming close to me, but by God's grace I was able to swap, but this payment I was back. We were able to all disengage from the vehicle. Unfortunately, I was watching my girl this one is seriously, and I thought I couldn't help it.
I was able to smuggle myself out of the vehicle. I took a run, and after running, I left the car there. After running to the pavement at the center of the road, I saw that my back was already free because the truck had already flown away all the vehicles that were before me and were behind me. So I saw an opportunity to see if my car could still move. I jumped in because it was still on steaming. I jumped in again and put the car on reverse. Immediately I reversed for a few meters. I hit the pavement to cross to the other side of the road. Then people rushed, people that were standing by pushed the car off the road to the other side. That is how I was able to get the scrap of the vehicle.
Grateful for not being at his workstation during the time of the explosion, Chris stated the possibility of being involved as many of his colleagues died from the incident.
This is exactly the point where I work. This is my career. This is where I work. And when this thing happened yesterday was at the peak of our work.
The FRSC office stationed close to the explosion location immediately attended to those affected and recounting taking about 8 people burnt beyond recognition to the mortuary, while about 25 injured persons were taken to the hospital.
About 25 people were injured. And others might have even been taken by relatives and friends, so we cannot ascertain the number of people, but once we attended to were like 25.
It is truly a devastating incident as eyewitnesses have recounted their experiences during and after the explosion. So far, at least 8 persons have been confirmed dead, while several others remain hospitalized. Authorities and medical personnel are working tirelessly to ensure full recovery of those injured. Sharon Ajay reporting for Global TV.
The Nigerian Data Protection Commission, NDPC, has launched an investigation into TikTok and Truecaller over alleged data breaches as part of its enforcement of the Nigerian Data Protection Act, NDPA. The National Commissioner and Chief Executive Officer of the NDPC, Dr. Vincent Olatunji, revealed this at the press conference in Abuja, stating that the Commission was scrutinizing their compliance with data protection laws. He added that depending on the findings, if the companies could go through remediation and correct their lapses, the NDPC would open to working with them. The Nigerian military, in conjunction with Hybrid Forces, Office of the National Security Advisor Team, and security agencies, says it has continued its intensified fight against terrorists and other criminal elements in joint operations. The Director of Media Operations, Major General Marcus Kangie, made this known while keeping journalists abreast with the operational activities of the armed forces in the theater of operations. Kike Lomo Okere has the details.
The Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Marcus Kangie, says between 10th and 20th of March 2025, troops conducted fighting and confidence-building patrols, raids, ambushes and clearance, as well as search and rescue operations with resounding successes. During operations across various theaters, several terrorists were neutralized with their collaborators apprehended, while some kidnapped victims were rescued. The week under review also witnessed the handover of rehabilitated terrorists to the Borno State government.
Also, between 10 and 18th March, troops in conjunction with hybrid forces conducted offensive operations including ambushes, fighting patrols, and clearance operations in Goza, Dikwa, Chibok, Bama, Konduga, Damboa, Ngazai, Mungulu, Abadam, and Guzamula local government areas of Borno State, as well as Gujuba local government area of Yobe State, respectively.
It further rules out that in the South-South zone, troops foiled oil theft to the tune of over 461 million naira, apprehended 23 perpetrators of oil theft, and rescued some kidnapped hostages.
Troops discovered and destroyed 36 crude oil cooking ovens, 42 dugout pits, 28 boats, 33 storage tanks, 65 drums, and 21 illegal refining sites.
However, troops recovered huge catch of assorted arms and ammunition during the week. The military high command says it will continue to carry out its constitutional responsibilities of protecting lives and properties of all Nigerians in line with the constitutional rules of engagement and code of conduct of internal security operations. Kike Lomo Okele, Global Television News.
In a move to ease the financial burden on patients and their families, the Imo State Governor has announced plans to clear up outstanding medical bills at the Imo State University Teaching Hospital, IMSUT. Olu Governor Hope Uzodinma had made the announcement during his visit to the hospital as part of his ongoing inspection of key projects across the state. Imo State correspondent Amarachi Ibe reports.
The atmosphere at the Imo State Teaching Hospital was a quiet one. Patients fighting for recovery, medical personnel working tirelessly to provide care. But beneath the determination, there was also the weight of financial burden as many patients struggle to afford their medical bills. Governor Hope Uzodinma's visit to IMSUT was met with optimism as he assessed the hospital's operation and ongoing infrastructural upgrades. While commending the dedication of the medical personnel, he acknowledged the financial struggles of many patients and their families.
We have to embark on multiple constructions of so many projects to recover the economy of this place and then also recover life for our people in this area. So I'm happy that work is going on. The University Teaching Hospital, which is the only tertiary hospital in Imo State, is being recovered.
To ease the financial burden, Governor Uzodinma announced that the state government will clear all outstanding medical bills at the facility. A decision, he said, aligned with his administration's commitment to strengthen the healthcare system and ensure that every indigent has access to quality medical care. For many patients and their families, it was an emotional moment. Some shed tears of gratitude, others could barely contain their joy. The news spread quickly, bringing hope to those who have feared being trapped by medical debts. As the state government continues its drive to strengthen the healthcare system, this latest gesture reaffirms its commitment to ensure that quality medical care remains accessible to all. From IMSUT, Olu, Amarachi Ibe, reporting for Global TV News.
That's it on Global TV News Prime. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen by using @Global TV NG. You can download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to keep track of our broadcasts. I am Godwin Sunday. Thank you for watching.
Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
A Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper reviews and latest news with experts on key global issues.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and international.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning. Do you know that Global Television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world?
Download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to watch Global Television real time from around the world. What are you waiting for?
Start downloading and stay connected to Global Television.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
A Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper reviews and latest news with experts on key global issues.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
And the president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning. Do you know that Global Television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world?
Download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to watch Global Television real time from around the world. What are you waiting for?
Start downloading and stay connected to Global Television.
is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
A Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper reviews and latest news with experts on key global issues.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on
the road to protest.
And the president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning. Do you know that Global Television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world?
Download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to watch Global Television real-time from around the world. What are you waiting for?
Start downloading and stay connected to Global Television.
Welcome back. All right, so at this point we'll be talking about the justification for the emergency rule in Rivers State, and also we understand that the federal government have given pipeline vandalization and a threat to the economy as one of the reasons for all of this. But then let's even look at the Senate video again, how the Senate played out yesterday at the plenary. Then thereafter we'll now delve into the conversation with my guests already on standby. Let's take a look at the video again.
After the session, President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, put the matter to a voice vote, with lawmakers overwhelmingly supporting the request. Announcing the decision, Akpabio says the Senate had exercised its powers under Section 305, subsection 2 of the Constitution to approve the President's proclamation. The upper chamber, relying on Section 11, subsection 4 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, resolved to set up a joint committee to oversee the administration of Rivers State Legislature and a select group of eminent Nigerians to reconcile the warring parties in the state.
Conferred on it by Section 305, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, and approve the proclamation of state of emergency declared by Mr. President in Rivers State of Nigeria. The Senate further directs that the declaration of the state of emergency stated in the proclamation document and the mandate of Mr. President to review, and hereby mandates the President to review and even to terminate the state of emergency at any given time, but not later than 6 months. The Senate further resolved that Section 11, subsection 4 be invoked, providing the National Assembly the authority to set up a joint ad hoc committee of both chambers to oversight the administration of Rivers State henceforth.
Earlier, the House of Representatives approved the declaration through a voice voting by the 243 members in attendance.
Hold on, honorable colleagues. You are saying that the President doesn't need to wait until the expiration of the 6 months before he can lift this suspension, right? That if by tomorrow Rivers State will wake up and everything is okay, he has the right to say, okay, the state of emergency should come to an end. So rather than just tying us to 6 months, you are saying at any given time, between the first day after the passage of this particular request, the President is at liberty to lift this suspension. Is that what you are saying? Okay. Those in support of this request of Mr. President as amended should say aye. Aye. Those in support of this request from Mr. President as amended should say aye. Those against should say nay. There is have it. Thank you very much.
President Bola Tinubu had on Tuesday declared a state of emergency in Rivers State, citing breakdown of law and order, while appointing retired Vice Admiral Ibok Ete to administer the state in absence of Governor Fubara and the 27 lawmakers. For Global Television, Queen Agaba reporting.
All right, thank you so much for that report, and even Queen Agaba. But joining me in the studio for this conversation are two gentlemen. First one is Ezima James, who is a political analyst, and also joining us online all the way from Lagos is Dr. Wisdom Enang, who is an oil and gas expert. But first, let me welcome you to the studio. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Wisdom, you're welcome to the show this morning. Dr. Wisdom, if you can hear us, good morning. You're welcome to Global Morning. Dr. Wisdom Enang, if you can hear us, good morning. You're welcome to Global. Let me bring this conversation first to you, Ezima James. You have been following the situation across. Of course, there's been a very long conversation coming. But yesterday we saw the Nigerian Senate giving a nod to the president's decision to suspend the governor, a democratically elected governor of Rivers State.
Yeah.
But how would you react to the Senate or the whole Senate process yesterday and that of the House of Representatives?
Well, as we know, the National Assembly is more or less an arm of the executive, and before now, we have not seen the National Assembly say anything contrary to whatever the president has had presented to them.
That makes them an arm of the executive.
They have decided to make themselves the arm of the executive, where whatever the executive brings to them, they will always accept, and they take hook, line, and sinker. The only thing they did was they tried to play around the whole situation by trying to amend the motion to probably that okay, if the president decides tomorrow to make it less than 6 months, the president can do that. But we know that that emergency rule cannot be less than 6 months, because it was part of the suspicion everywhere is that it's part of the plan by the ruling government to annex that state to themselves. It's all about the 2027 general election, so that's where everybody is driving at. But let's see how the thing is going to be. But the Senate and the House of Representatives were always going to do what they did yesterday.
All right, let me go to Dr. Enang at this point in time. Dr. Enang, you are in the oil and gas sector. Looking at the excuse that the president have given that it is for protecting of Rivers pipeline, which is a national asset, is one of the reasons why that decision was taken. Is it to say that other pipelines in other places have not been tampered with or affected? Is there a justification from this, even from the oil and gas angle?
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead, please.
All right, thank you very much. Looking at the whole situation, I think it is more political than from a pipeline protection standpoint. Because when you look at the framework that I'd like to recommend for pipeline protection, I tend to call it the PDRR: protect, detect, respond, and recover. And the protect simply means detect, respond, and recover. The predict simply means there are analytics and softwares that you are using and devices that you are using to sort of pick up trends and monitor situations. The detect means you're able to know that that's a real intrusion. The respond and recover simply means that there is an intrusion, there is a systematic breach of all of those protocols at the predict and the detect levels, and then you are responding. Now, where I'm getting at is the president has done respond and recover, but I have no clue if there were any predict and detect sort of protocols that were overshadowed by the events and how they were overshadowed by the events. Now, the president alludes to the fact that there is an intelligence report suggesting that one of the parties sort of was, perhaps responsible for the pipeline, explosion, the trans pipeline explosion. However, there is no intelligence report suggesting that there were actually enough protocols on those security protocols on those pipelines, and that breach was actually as a result of this existing conflict. And even if there is need for a robust protection system that even when we envisage such political crisis, it doesn't always crystallize down into having vandalization of pipelines and of course loss of economic output for the nation.
Interesting. So invariably, we can say at this point that the president was right with his decision.
Well, we cannot say he was right with his decision, but what we can say is that it's there is no sufficient grounds to say that we have taken a robust approach to pipeline protection. And of course, as I said, there are different protocols. Even when you look at the respond and recover, the respond and recover is where you have even the security that are meant to go around the pipelines. If the security, for example, are not complicit in this, how would that barrier be broken? So think about three barriers here: the predict barrier, the detect barrier, the respond and recover barrier. Before any pipeline intrusion happens, all three are complicit. So my point is, rather than point out just one event as a probable cause, can we go into the root cause analysis and find out? And if you go deeper, you find out that we don't even have a robust pipeline protection in the first place. So this is just a very comfortable excuse, actually.
All right, but then, Dr. Ellen, before we even come back to the studio, a lot of people within the oil and gas sector has been mute, even with the president's decision right now. We thought that by now we would get people protests from Nupeng, then to Ipman, and also another association that also attached themselves to the oil and gas sector, but they've all gone silent. We've seen tankers being attacked, we've seen a pipeline being vandalized, and no state of emergency has been declared even in this regard. Is it that the oil and gas sector have been selective in their fight, even as it stands right now?
No, I don't think they're selective, and I think the leadership of the unions are probably weighing their options. They probably may not respond as quick as you're thinking, but ultimately, one thing that the union may be watching out for is to see, again, is the state of emergency declared by the president going to be all-encompassing, that it solves the problem. But you see, the first thing I said was that this is just a sort of a situation where you have the lack of robustness in our protection systems meeting a situation, but doesn't really mean that it is one that caused the other. Both of them are mutually exclusive events, although happening within the same background and having a negative effect on the economy. So I think, cognizant of that the the unions are actually wearing their options, and perhaps would address this after they monitor the situation, perhaps late into next week.
All right, so I asked that question because to a very large extent, I know that Ezema here in the studio will also agree with me that we have a lot of political parties coming out to kick against this decision of the president, and also we have a lot of stakeholders have come out to air their grievances and state what their position is even with this, but we've not heard even from the oil and gas sector people coming out to talk about this. But then let's even move away from that. Let's come back to the justification for this particular action as it stands right now. Will this further drive Rivers State into a developmental strides, even with this in terms of gas explosion and pipeline vandalization? With this quick decision further guarantee that there will be no loss of life, no pipeline vandalization in Rivers State, even with the emergence of the new administrator of Rivers State? Or how would you assess it generally? Let me put it that way.
I mean, sometimes the constitution gives certain options, but you do not know how those options will play out. Just like we do not know how bad the effect of subsidy removal and flotation of the naira will be on our economy, and we learned the hard way. But my point is, one of the things that is going to drive development in Rivers State has got to be the fact that people kind of are intentionally made to understand that this is not a politically driven move. The guest in the studio did say that he did look at the angle of, okay, maybe the federal government trying to annex that state, and that apprehension itself, right? Rightly so, is very bad for economic growth, because when people feel that when people are sold that ideology, and rightly so, that you're coming to take the state from them, there'll be resistiveness. And when there's resistiveness, we're going to have the age-long problem we have in oil and gas, which is if the host community are not comfortable with your operations, they will sabotage your operations, and it comes from within. So what is the job of the administrator at the moment is to pick all of these negative narratives and try and show that truly he's come there not to annex the state, but to fix the wrong. But on the sideline, right, making that happen is going to be using the 6 months as a platform for negotiating political resolution to this problem. You really do not want a situation, for example, let me give you a bit of context. You don't want a situation where there is a further inflammation of the situation within the 6 months. The 6 months should be a time to come to the round table, make a decision where both parties come back and then continue their work and work in peace. Of course, having tested how bad things can get. But if this 6 months is spent, again, trying to find a way to remove one party or the other, what is going to happen? That will fuel the resistiveness from Rivers State and the lack of cooperation to the administrator, and that will not yield growth. So ultimately, the two components that I feel is really important is the administrator making sure that it's fair to all tribes. There's no kind of demarcation of Ijaw or with other tribes, making sure that it's for Rivers people. And then two, there being a political situation that is very, very kind of a safe landing and everybody goes home happy. Without that, the Rivers people will never cooperate, and there will be no good yield of democratic dividends.
All right, let me come to you, Ezema, even in the studio right now. So, the president has said that prior to March 18th, when he made that declaration in Rivers State, that there have been a lot of Rivers State was in a near collapsed situation. That is, and he said that there was a threat to the federal economy, assets, and the risk of widespread violence left no room for hesitation. So there was a pressing need for them to. But you are coming from the political angle. How will you X-ray and assess Rivers State in terms of what it was prior to March 18th, when the president made that speech? Was Rivers State in a total near-war scenario?
You see, that is akin to what the military interventionists, will always say when they overthrow a democratic government. They will always tell you that there was corruption, they were near this, near that, something was going to happen and things like that, to justify the reason why they should overthrow a democratically elected government. We have seen it in various coups that took place in this country, and that is exactly the kind of situation that you present when this type of thing happens. In the real sense of it, what happened in Rivers State is just when you want to find a way to justify whatever intention you had planned to carry out, you just look for excuses and to ensure that that is done. We're talking of security threats to national assets like the pipeline. The pipelines are not the only national asset in Nigeria. We have had threats in other national or against other national assets across some states in the country. Does it mean that the federal government will now be telling us that once there's a threat to national asset, you remove the governor of the state? Is the governor of the state the one that is in charge of the security? The police is not under the control of a governor. The military is not under the command of the governor. We have a commander-in-chief who should have given a marching order to forestall law and order in that state without removing an elected government official. So this is what people are talking about, that nobody is against declaring state of emergency to restore whatever order that needed to be restored. But you should not, by the backdoor and the unlawful or unconstitutional means try to remove an elected government or elected officials of the state, because it is not within your constitutional power to do so. And that is where the people are having issues with the declaration of the state of emergency. State of emergency is always desired when there is need, but there is a stipulated way by the constitution, as is stated, that to remove a sitting governor or an elected official, there's always a way that the constitution had put it. So section 305 that the president relied on did not at any place say that the president has to remove the governor of a state while declaring state of emergency. The process of removing the governor of a state, they are all stated in the constitution. I think there is section 188 that stipulated how and the way and manner a governor can be removed. He can say, I'm not interested any longer, I need to go because I'm tired, I can't handle the situation, he resigns. You cannot come out and say that the governor of a state is because you believe that there was going to be that is even it's not even, it's something that you are trying to say that there may be. There was none, except the pipeline explosions that happened, which nobody can say what actually led to it. I can decide to give a dog a bad name in order to hang it. If I have decided and this is what I want to do, I can do one or two things that will implicate you and get you out of the way. It happens and it can happen. So what the government should have done is to actually investigate what actually transpired, what happened. If there was an intelligence report, that is a good one, because we should have given the president the advance notice of what was going to happen. What was he supposed to do? Deploy the security agencies to nip the matter in the bud so far as the intelligence report has come. And that is what he's supposed to be, not to remove an elected government official and then you suspend the State House of Assembly, you suspend the executive, and then how will governance be in that state?
We'll come back to you. Let's talk to Dr. Wisdom Enanga. Dr. Wisdom, are you still there with us?
Yes, loud and clear. I can hear you.
All right, so Dr. Wisdom, from the oil and gas sector, I'm curious at this moment. Is Rivers State the worst in terms of vandalism of pipelines as it stands right now, or how will you assess the pipeline vandalism in the southern part of Nigeria? And if you want to place that simultaneously with Rivers State, can we say that the two pipeline vandalization that we've recorded so far was the worst so far in the entire southern part of Nigeria?
Oh no, definitely not. But it has sort of upset the steady state that we were. We're currently at a theft level of about 5,000 barrels per day, and that stayed consistent. But this recent explosion has kind of created further losses, because of course the theft level translates to loss, and so even exploding the pipeline also translates to some economic loss. Some are tangible in the sense that you can count the number of barrels that you're losing, and the other is intangible in the sense that it's a further deterrent to potential investors. But we've got worse, events in the past. However, I think the Rivers case is just a litmus test. I like to say it's a litmus test of the fact that have we gotten our pipeline security right? And that is what I agree with what the gentleman is saying, that there needs to be a robust and non-political protocol for the protection of pipeline. So it's almost like somebody roofs your house and you're praying that one day you were able to test how robust that is, and then one day you have a very heavy downpour of rain, and then you're able to see some of the weaknesses. So, away from the political situation in Rivers, I think the president needs to really do what we call an RCFA, root cause fault analysis, and look at the pipeline protection systems themselves. There are still weaknesses which has only been unearthed as a result of the Rivers crisis. The Rivers crisis doesn't translate to, doesn't translate directly to pipeline vandalism unless certain elements that are weak links across the protection value chain are broken, and we need to ask ourselves, what are those protocols along the protection value chain, and how do we fix it? So let's take this as a litmus test. But yes, it's a significant impact considering the levels of crude loss to theft and vandalism which was $5,000. This is a significant one.
All right, so again, I'm asking that particular question to ask this exact question, which is the fact that Rivers State right now, we saw the speed in which those pipelines were repaired, and they were fixed almost less than 2 days they were repaired. It looks like a drama to me. So I'm curious again, have we worked out modalities within the oil and gas sectors that vandalism of pipelines can be fixed almost immediately, even if it's been exploded, even if it's been exploded?
Oh yeah, there are methods. I speak as a piping engineer. There are different means. You do know that they're functional, but you don't know if it's a temporary fix to bring up the functionality, or if it's a permanent fix. I mean, there's what we call hot tap, and you could hot tap and redirect your flow to a different line, and you can do that in half a day. It depends on the extent of damage. If the extent of damage is in a localized area, you can simply even use a hose or a pipe, a flexible hose and crude hose, and then redirect the flow of the crude. So there are a number of methods, and yes, it has been perfected because I'm a piping engineer, so I do know that. The only thing is this. Again, I keep talking to the elements of protection. I take you back to my preambles: predict, detect, respond, and recover. What do we see? We see a quick respond and recover. What happens to the predicting elements? What happens to all the intelligence signals that we ought to be getting? And remembering that once the political crisis was going up, we ought to have known proactively that we needed to increase our levels of surveillance on these pipelines, because that was the primary target. So when you look at your risk screening, even in the UK, they look at risk level, they look at the green level, no risk, the amber level, which is little risk, potential risk, and then they look at the red level, which is a very, very active risk. So who was saddled, just like the guest in the studio alluded to, who was saddled in the security agency for making the call and saying, look, we're going to have a potential, I think we should take the security protocol on amber and start increasing surveillance, because that would have increased the prediction on those pipelines, the people that are going around, and all the signals that are meant to ensure that they predict any intrusion, and then there would have also been a different detection. So for me, the respond and recover is more of a reactive move, however fast, right? It doesn't tell us how to proactively ensure that we increase pipeline surveillance and protection in tandem with what is happening in the socio-political setting of the state. And that, to me, is where the failure of this whole pipeline protection system stands.
All right, thank you so much for that feedback. All right, we'll come back to you, Dr. Wisdom, but let me return back to the studio here, and let's even look at it from the political light again, with Ezema James with me here in the studio. Let's talk about we saw the president come out to congratulate the National Assembly for a job well done. And it calls this the unity of purpose. That is, for the first time, we see patriotism, National Assembly has shown patriotism towards the action of the leaders, and then that the government remained steadfast in pursuing safe and prosperous Nigeria. That's exact words of the presidential spokesperson, President Abayo Onanuga. Of course, that's coming directly from the president, by the way. But let's look at this critically. Was this decision a unity of purpose for the good people of Rivers State, the good people of Nigeria, or is just a unity of purpose for certain individuals that have decided to explore the political scene?
I think from personal assessment, it is something that one can look at and we believe that it is not about the interest of the country, it's not about the interest of the people of Rivers State. It is about when you have a kind of a plan or an agenda or what you want to achieve, then those people who are within that circle that had that agreement can be talking about unity of purpose. Even the presidency, the National Assembly, and all the actors in this Rivers State crisis, they all know that the state of emergency that was declared to the extent of removing elected officials in that state is an unpopular decision, and Nigerians have expressed their displeasure with that, and it remains unpopular, and that was why it was difficult for them to actually galvanize the National Assembly on the first day that they were supposed to go ahead with that concurrence to the president that eventually happened yesterday. They had to do their normal trading and things like that, compromises here and there for them to be able to arrive at the decision they took yesterday. So if they were allowed to actually vote, that would not have the unity of purpose that is being talked about would not have happened. What they did was that they now used a voice vote in a two-third, where you need a two-third majority to decision in any organization. You cannot use a voice vote to determine two-third majority. That is not the best way a democratic system should use to determine a two-third in an environment where a decision of that magnitude is to be taken. And then you say you are talking of patriotism. Yes, it will be patriotism, and then patriotism depends on the perspective of the person who is looking at it. So it is not patriotic. What may be patriotic for someone who has his own or her own agenda may not be patriotism for the rest of the Nigerian people.
All right, let's because I understand we have 3 minutes with Dr. Wisdom right now. Dr. Wisdom, are you still there? Wisdom, let's even find out from you at this point. Nigerians are curious to know that if at this point, all right, Dr. Wisdom, are you still there with us? Let me come back to you. Let me come back to you at this point. So we talked about, you mentioned about the voice vote that was applied in the State House, in the National Assembly yesterday. Of course, they saw both the upper and the lower house did the same thing yesterday. The minorities gave their support. The majorities gave their support. So it was a unanimous agreement by both minorities and majority of the House. Doesn't this amount to unity of purpose for the first time in Nigeria, where the House agrees on something even for a greater good?
Well, the House have never disagreed on anything before, so I have not seen
the 10th House or
this 10th House. I have not seen when they disagreed on anything really, except something that has to expose what is going on at the at the National Assembly. If that's the only place, the only time they disagree, and they end up either muzzling the person who wants to expose anything, or the person is suspended. We saw it with Senator Ningi, who wanted to was making allegation of the budget padding and all the rest of the thing at the Senate, and he was summarily suspended and all that. So you see, that is what we are talking about. There's unity of purpose. Yes, it depends on what are you united for or against. So if you are united to execute your own agenda in your own party interest, fine. If it is in the national interest, majority of the Nigerian people say no to the removal of an elected government official. It is not within the constitutional powers of the president. But in Nigeria we have a situation whereby we have seen decisions taken by the courts in recent time, and some of them did not align with the aspirations and the thoughts and the beliefs of the Nigerian people in terms of justice and fairness in the outcomes of some of those court decisions. So the what we are having today is a situation where people who said they are all Democrats, coming together, and they are actually desecrating the democratic process on daily basis, and we are seeing it. It's just like the Adolf Hitler of those days. Before the Adolf Hitler came to power, he used to be a social crusader. He used to be a moralist. He used to be somebody who was standing as somebody that was fighting corruption, and he endeared himself to the people of Germany, and when he now became the authority in Germany, he now began to act in a way contrary to the posture he has presented earlier on. So these are the things. Most times you see that some of the people who come as social crusaders, they come as anti-corruption, and most times they are activists. At the end of the day, you see them that when they are in office, they turn out to become the opposite of what they have, the image they have presented themselves. And if we say that we are Democrats, let us follow the rule of law. Let us, no matter how long it takes, let us follow the rule of law, and not resort to. For me, I see it as self-help, because anything outside of the law amounts to self-help. You are trying to abridge the process because it favors your interest. I remember that when the state of emergency was declared in Ekiti and Plateau State in those days, the then opposition parties were not in tandem with that declaration. They criticized it, and that is one of the reasons that people thought that giving the opposition a chance would present Nigeria with a better alternative. But if you said you didn't like what the ruling party at the time, the PDP, was doing, and you are given the opportunity to come and test what you can do to better the country, and you are towing the same line, then it means that I don't know what we call it. It would have been that we have made a mistake in giving a chance to the alternative political party to come and rule the country. So you cannot come and start justifying what you had condemned. That does not make you a true Democrat as you claim to be. And that is the situation we find in our National Assembly, where people who you remember when at the time they were talking about people in 2015, we had a Jumbo Pay slogan that the National Assembly members were collecting Jumbo Pay and all kinds of things. But when they were given opportunity in 2015 to join the National Assembly, nobody has spoken about Jumbo Pay up to today. Everybody have continued to conceal how much they are collecting as their salaries and allowances. So these are the things we are talking about. Some people will want to just come to office, and then in order to get to the office, they will start telling us what they know, that is what they want. We want to hear from them, and when they get there, they do the right opposite, and that is what we are seeing today.
So at this point, where do we go from here? It has been done. The president has come out to make a declaration. Then, of course, two-thirds through the voice vote has been able to support the decision of the president. Opposition parties have come out to speak. In this case, it's likely that they cannot even sue because they don't even have a local standing. Can Fubara go to court for interpretation of Section 305? Where do we go from here, even as it stands right now?
Well,
because we need to set the records right to be able to know that we will not be judged unfairly in posterity.
Certainly, the deed has been done, and that's the point they wanted to bring us to. They want to bring us to this point where there is nothing we can actually do. But what I would say is that from this time to the next 6 months, that the military administrator will be in the...
Even they said it can be called off before that 6 months. If things...
Well, I don't see it being called off before that time, because it's only what I am looking at is that a possible extension may not, the president, due to the unpopular nature of that declaration, may not extend the emergency rule. But I don't see him, calling it off before the next 6 months. But the appeal that most Nigerians are making is that, yes, use these 6 months to restore whatever order that you need to restore in Rivers State, and make sure that you bring these two people who are the two gladiators, the FCT minister and the Governor Fubara, and bring them together at a round table. Try to resolve this matter. It's not something that is difficult to resolve. As a president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who are taking this decisive action, in the interest of the nation, as they have said, then you can bring these people together, sit them down one-on-one, not bringing crowd. Two of them, sit them together.
But the president has done even. Sorry to interrupt.
Let us know let the president actually know what is even the problem.
The president has not come out to even say that there's a time frame for IBAS to be able to resolve this issue. So, okay, we said the minimum is 6 months, and if it's not resolved within that 6 months, it could be extended. But all of this politically, does it mean that the Rivers State electoral timetable has been interrupted? Will INEC still be counting Fubara in office, or INEC will have to disrupt or pause the calendar for Fubara then, so we now start having off-season elections even in Rivers State?
Well, that will be what the court have to decide, because nobody can actually, the Constitution did not have that kind of scenario being painted, but we remember that P2B in Anambra State then was when he was impeached, he had to now go and to court for interpretation of tenure, and he got an interpretation of tenure at that time. But the thing is that the scenario is not the same. So probably the Governor Fubara may need to approach the court for interpretation. And one thing that has happened in this period, within this time, is that especially under this administration, is that certain court judgment has become the law. Even though many lawyers have disagreed with some of those judgments, but they have become the law, that even after this administration, that will be the law of the land, especially judgments that emanate from the Supreme Court. So some of these things, that's why injustice or things that unfair judgments are not very okay, because tomorrow when we are no longer there, that will becomes the law of the country, and there is what you think that does not affect you today may affect you tomorrow. And that's why when people are making laws, they don't make laws based on somebody in mind. You make laws based on fairness and justice for the society, not for the sake of witch hunting an individual or group, because at the end of the day, you may not be there, and somebody else may use the law against you.
So invariably, as it stands right now, the opposition cannot sue. That's what it implies right now.
The only person that can go to court is Governor Fubara. From what the little I know, I'm not a lawyer, but from the little I know in the whole scenario here, as regards this emergency rule, the only person that can go to court is Governor Fubara, or the elected assembly members whose tenure were truncated. But I don't see the assembly members going to court because they are part of the other side of the contending forces. So they wouldn't want to go to court against the people that are supporting them. So that is how it is.
All right. So we've seen a case where even in Rivers State, let's even talk about the pipeline vandalism. Governor Fubara has come out to say that he didn't send anybody to go and bomb anything. It doesn't have a hand, is not in party, but we've heard from the presidency as if we were supposed to have condemned such an act when it happened.
In Ondo State, there have been killings by herdsmen and people have been protesting. Has the president condemned the act that had taken place there? And if the president have not condemned it, should we now say that it is the president that instigated the people that are killing in that place? So let us not, that's why we talk about fairness and justice. When we are presenting issues, we shouldn't present them just because we want to justify an action that is obviously not in favor of public opinion. Public opinion is against what happened in Rivers State, the declaration and the removal of that is the removal of the elected government officials. The public opinion is against it.
But does his body language suggest that he must have? When they basically made those claims and some of those conversation, he was mute. He never said anything. Never came out to address the people of Rivers State. So could his body language have meant that he has given them the go-ahead or a nod to go ahead and bomb the pipelines?
It's only spirits that read body language. You cannot talk about body language of a person and use it in a criminal case. You cannot bring talk about body language in court as an evidence. It's not an body language is not an evidence. It's not something you can present as in court that so and so person committed the crime because his body language showed so. What you should do is to present evidence. If they had evidence that Governor Fubara was the one that gave that instruction or gave that order, fine and good. He is somebody that could be prosecuted for criminal offense after he has left his office. So the thing is that if he has done anything untoward, they should prosecute him when he leaves office. But the thing is that you cannot say that the governor that is under immunity, that what you are going to do is to now remove the person because you think that the person has committed an offense. Just like as the president is, then the National Assembly will wake up one morning and say, oh, we want to impeach him because of his body language. His body language is showing that he is supporting criminality in one part of the country or the other. No, nobody does that. Nobody can come and be justified that the president should be impeached because of body language. No, or because the president did not make a statement on a particular issue that happened. I don't know how that would be a justification for an impeachment of the president. So it cannot be a justification for the removal of an elected governor of a state.
This is quite interesting because to a large extent we've not seen it from this light. But let's come back to the body language and all of this. I'm curious, will Fubara be getting any stipends as a governor from the State House right now? Can he represent Rivers State outside the country as the executive governor of Rivers State, or everything that has to do with executive that has been accrued to him by the Constitution under the concurrent list of the Constitution, he has been deprived of them automatically by the emergence of a sole administrator?
Yeah, the sole administrator today is the executive of the state, and incidentally he is also the legislature for the state, because there is no legislative arm for the state, there is no executive in the state. So it is the sole administrator that is both the executive and the legislator. So it's the sole administrator that will pass the budget that is going to be the money that is going to be spending. Is the sole administrator that will pass the budget by himself, and he will be the one to write the budget, and will be the one to execute the budget. So, and there is all the checks and balances in the democracy, they are all suspended in that state, and that is what we are having in Rivers State as at today, that there is no is a sole administrator. That's why the word sole is there. It's just like a businessman who has just gone to the Corporate Affairs Commission, registered a
sole proprietorship.
Yes, a sole proprietorship as a business, and then he decides what happens with his earnings and how and where and when he does his business. If he doesn't want to do any business, he stays there, nobody questions him. That's how it is in Rivers State now. As it is in Rivers State today, you cannot say that anybody will go and question the sole administrator.
So Fubara, you're saying that Fubara does not enjoy anything of immunity right now?
I don't think there will be anything that has to do with the perk of office that he's going to enjoy, because he's not in the office. He is suspended. When you're under suspension in any place, you cannot be said to be enjoying the perk of office.
As suspended by an executive from the federal government, that is under the exclusive legislative list, but looking at the concurrent list, is still the executive. Look at the Message journalist, suspended executive.
Yes.
And then that we've not tested it in court. I was asking that question to ask if Fubara can still approach the courts. That was why I started with that question.
Sure.
Then if he can still enjoy some certain level of immunity, but you said he has been suspended, so automatically he will be deprived of every executive right.
Exactly. He's suspended and he's suspended. I don't think there's any executive right that he's going to enjoy as a governor of Rivers State. The only thing he can enjoy is based on the benevolence of the president. If the president decides to be benevolent enough to allow him enjoy whatever privilege he wants him to enjoy, fine, he will enjoy. But as it is today, he is no longer the executive governor.
Okay, so looking at all of this, look at all of this drama that is playing out in Rivers State, doesn't it bring us to a quasi-totalitarian state?
Well, that is what we are talking about, that in a democracy, if some people that came to, present themselves as Democrats, they later will turn out to become anti-democratic. We saw it in, as the example of Hitler that I gave, we saw it in Mobutu Sese Seko. He was also there, as somebody who have come to, provide a better life for the people. At the end of the day, you decide to sit tight to this, you wouldn't want to go, you wouldn't want to leave, you wanted to remain as a president forever. We also saw it in Zimbabwe. You see, it happens everywhere, that there are history of people who have come as Democrats and anti-corruption crusaders and moralists and social crusaders that have come to office, and either they decided to change the constitution just to remain in office, or they decided to abandon certain democratic ideals in order to remain in office. We have seen it world over. So it is exactly what we are seeing that is playing out in the country. And the thing is that we pray that the thing does not get to the level where we are going to be having something that is even worse than what we are experiencing.
Alright, so Ezra James, again, when Natasha issue happened in Abuja here, we saw pro and anti-Natasha's protesters putting on a display in the Federal Capital Territory. That's on one hand. But in the case of Rivers State, we've seen a lot of communities are mute even on this conversation. Nobody wants to talk. No protest is going on to the best of my knowledge. The protests are not going on. Is it that the people of Rivers State right now have accepted their faith that at this point in time we will rather go with what the president has said, or they will stand on, or they should rather be a situation where they should be agitating for their mandates to be fully implemented? So what your take is the reason why the River State people are not even agitating at this point?
You know, when things happen, most times you will be in shock, especially when something happens beyond your imagination, beyond your thinking, beyond your projection. You will be in shock, and it will take you time to recover and analyze issues objectively before you can now be able to decide on what you are going to do. I think that is exactly what happened in Rivers State. Most people are in shock, and then it is good that things are this way, because if they had used that kind of an anger to come out to the street and start protesting, it could lead to total breakdown of law and order in the state. And I think their decision to wait and process what has happened and know what to do is the best for the state and best for the people and best for the country at this time, because nobody prays that unruly people or mob action should be taking place in the state, because it will be detrimental to national security and also the welfare and progress of the state. So nobody, I think that whatever may have led to the kind of graveyard silence in Rivers State is a good thing for the country, because it would have been a total devastation in the state if people had come with the level of anger that they had and they say they want to come out and protest, because the state would have the security agencies would have resisted them, and it could have led to something more disastrous for the country. So it is a good thing. Let them process, and I think the best way to go is to follow the due process, and that is what we are talking about. That due process of law sometimes may be slow, but that is just the best way to go. So instead of taking laws into your hand and resorting to self-help, you should be able to manage the situation, calm yourself down, and know whatever thing you are going to do.
So, James, just before I let you go, let me put you on the spot. You've traveled to different parts of the country, I believe.
Sure.
All right. We've seen different type of practice of local democratic practice across the country. Do you think that this same suspension by the suspension declaration by President Tinubu would have worked in other states in Nigeria?
Anyway, I understand what you are saying. In some states of the country, you will not even contemplate that kind of action, because some states are more civil than the others, some are more volatile than the others, so you cannot even try to do certain things the way it was done in Rivers State, in some other state. But the issue is this: when you have set a standard, let us see you follow through it, because the standard now is that anywhere there's a major security breach in the country, the governor has to go, because that is the impression that we have today, that because it means that the governor is the one that instigating.
So automatically, as it starts, are you that you have to go
anywhere that it happens?
So we of Lagos State will have to go.
If there is any
two speakers have emerged from Lagos State at a point, yes, and that almost threw the state into a quagmire. Yes. So automatically at that point, someone ought to have gone.
That is.
Are the protesting on this stage right now? Are you that you ought to go?
That you have said.
Osun State Governor, what do you call it, Adeleke, should go.
Once you set a standard.
Is the conversation around the fact that Fubara is a bit of a gentleman? That's why all of this is being netted on him. That's what we're trying to understand.
Well, it is not about being a gentleman or not being a gentleman. It is, you see, there are things that happen within the political sphere that is only the politicians that can explain them. You know, these are some of the things that happen has nothing to just be. They have nothing to do with being a gentleman or not being a gentleman. There are processes, and if you are an enlightened person, you want to follow due process in doing.
The one I'm asking this particular scenario because when former governor of Rivers State was there as a sitting governor, President Nyesom Wike, we saw a lot of drama that played out between himself and the former Minister of Transportation, the president of Rotimi Amechi. A lot of drama played out, but he was not suspended. We saw a lot of activities. Let's not begin to pinpoint on that. We've seen a lot of activities going on in other part of the country. Let's not begin to mention states right now, but we know what is going on in the far north of Nigeria. We know what even a particular small group right now known as Talakawa, not Talakawa, the Lakurawa group are terrorizing people. Most governors are losing their grip because some of this banditry and Boko Haram already claiming communities. They are expanding their scope, and governors are not suspended. So could we say that it's because of Fubara's way of doing things that is being taciturn and being a gentleman, want to follow due process, and that's why all of this is even before his doorstep?
I don't think
should Fubara be another Wike when Wike was in office?
No, there are no two persons that are the same.
Okay.
The truth of it is that you know, that's why even the federal government, I'm sure they are also looking at these situations and knowing fully well that what has been done has been done. There is nothing we can do, you know, because undoing it would have been like portraying the president as a weakling and things like that. But that's why I'm looking at it that they may not extend that emergency rule beyond what it is today. But for anybody to think that the emergency rule will end before 6 months, I don't see it coming. And then, you know, on social media we saw what happened in Yobe State about 3 days or so ago, where some soldiers were executed by all these insurgents, ISWAP and the rest of them. And I don't know how. No, I don't think anybody has actually reacted to it from the government side in such a manner that they are reacting to a blowing of pipeline in the river state, because we should be talking human life is even more important, is more of a national asset than the oil that we are trying to protect by all means. So how much of human life have we protected in Nigeria? And that is where we should be interrogating this some of these actions of the government, and try to bring it to the point that we can now ask the government, if you say that this is the standard you have set, make sure that you execute the same kind of decision in any other states where there is a loss of life. Because they said that why the declaration was made was to ensure that they prevent loss of life, and lives are being lost in some parts of the country and nothing is being done, and the state leadership and the elected officials in that same state are still there. So we should be able to look at ourselves in the face and say this has become the standard, and let us see whether the federal government will take the same action anytime when there is a breach of peace in any state.
Well, this is how far we can go even today on the show Global Morning. I want to say thank you so much, Dr. Enanga Wisdom, an oil and gas expert, for being part of the show this morning. right, and I want to also say thank you so much, Izama James, for being a part of the show this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, viewers, don't forget that you can join the conversation on our social media handle showing on your screen right now at Global TV NG. You can also download the Global TV app on Android and iOS devices to keep track of our broadcast. I am Godwin Sunday. Always remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress. From all of us here in the studio, it's bye for now.
Welcome to Global Morning.
Death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too. For sure. If you don't say we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rate as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle with the ASU strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a life. The president never gave me any deadline.